Where are them tea bags now, big pussy? Where are them tea bags now, bitch? Sorry. I wonder if Tataru still watches my videos. Of all the killers in Dead by Daylight, I find the Legion to be the most fascinating. Everything I learned about this killer, from trailer hype to community sentiments, leaves me with an almost sense of awe. The Legion has an almost universally viewed aspect of being fun to play while boring to play against. On top of that, everyone who touches the Legion has their favorite member of the group, with all-out wars among Legion mains of who the best member is. Do you prefer the de facto leader, Frank Morrison, the silent but strong Joey, the timid and lonely Susie, or the rage-filled golden girl Julie? As time has gone on, my opinions of Legion has changed drastically. I did this video once before called How to Fix Legion, and I can honestly say, looking back, I'm not too much of a fan of that video nowadays. Very similar to when I did my How to Fix Trapper video, I was still new and fresh to the game of Dead by Daylight, and I was trying desperately to replace killers with something that I call feature bloat, where I wanted to give older killers as much as some of the newer killers coming out had, and I ended up overcorrecting myself and coming up with a very convoluted and frustrating system that I don't really think matches what I believe anymore. So, as per tradition, I'm visiting it again. Welcome to my analysis series, a video series here on YouTube where I take a look at a killer's lore, thematics, power, gameplay, add-ons, perks, and more to truly understand the character. Check the time codes listed on your screen or in the description for each section. Remember, this is a largely auditory experience, so feel free to throw this on a second monitor, smart TV, Samsung Fringe, or whatever, and let's dive into Frank Morrison, Julie Costanaco, Susie Lavoie, and Joey, who doesn't have a last name for some reason, otherwise known as the Legion. You motherfuckers better appreciate the lengths I go to make these videos. It may not seem like much, but paying $30 for shipping included on a trade paperback version of the Legion comics that I finished in less than 15 minutes so I could make sure I had all the lore down was not my idea of the best way to spend 30 bucks. But I can't really say I regret it. It's some well-written comics with an appealing art style and far more depth than anything Behavior has put out up to this point in the killer roster. Your bog standard couple of paragraphs and early tome entries left a lot to be desired. The basis is pretty simple. Frank Morrison is a kid moving from foster care to foster care. He ends up with an alcoholic foster dad in the small mountain town of Ormond. Here, he meets Julie, a struggling artist desperately trying to escape the golden girl expectations put on her by her parents, Susie, Julie's best friend who has a crush on Julie and is abused at home, and Joey, a stoic type prone to outbursts of anger who does his best to be a good son to his overworked mother. Through a mutual understanding of trauma and wanting to be bigger than what they are, the four form a group of misfits called the Legion. They vandalize, steal, and cause general mayhem throughout the town. One night, everything comes to a head when Joey is fired from his job at the hardware store, with a robbery pinned on him. The Legion go to the store in the night prepared to rob and vandalize the place. When a night janitor catches them and grabs Susie from behind, Frank then stabs the man, and each of the four are soon coaxed into doing the same. Together they have killed, together they are stronger than the trauma, and together they are the Legion. I really liked the comic. Instead of the original paragraph and tome, which really only focused on two of the Legion members and not all that well, to be honest, the comic takes in turns to show us the innermost thoughts and personalities of all four members. The easiest way to discuss the lore is to talk about each one individually. Frank, in the original context, is painted as a manipulator of sorts, the sole reason for the group's eventual murder. But through the comics, we see a much more deep and complex character. Frank doesn't just see the other members as easily manipulated idiots, he truly loves each one of them. He's spent his whole life being told he was and treated as a nobody. He leaves his mark in every foster home because all Frank wants is to be loved and remembered. He wants a legacy and to feel important, and he's desperate for that love and acknowledgement. When Julie becomes attached to him, he feeds off of her love in this very parasitic way. He views Susie as the little sister he must care for and Joey as his brother and confidant. In the comics, Frank has a talk with Joey that seems mean, but Frank says it's because he truly cares for Joey, and you feel like he's not lying. It's not that he's manipulated the Legion, it's that they all had their own versions of loneliness and trauma that he had. He is just as much a victim as they are, and it's that victimization that fuels the group's bond, not some masterful manipulation by Frank. Julie is under constant pressure by her parents to be perfect. She's a creative who simply wants to live and be free from small-town expectations, free from the perfect performer her parents want, and free from her own twisted thoughts. Meeting Frank Morrison gave Julie a sense of purpose and the freedom she never knew before. With Frank, she felt she could be open and honest. Her love for Susie is vast, but with Frank, she feels like she's found her other half, her twin soul, to quote the tomes, and it's through this twin soul and love that she finds the freedom she craves. While her parents aren't physically abusive like Susie's parents, we will get to that a little bit later, they are emotionally and mentally abusive. I talked at length about emotional and mental abuse in my Trapper video, so I'll keep it simple here, but the constant pressure Julie is under destroys any self-agency in a person. It forces them to question their every move, and it creates an anxiety that can kill if it goes unchecked. Slowly but surely, the voice of your parents is replaced with your own voice. I myself feel this every day of my life. Spending my childhood being told how smart I was and how I was good at everything and destined for greatness by the adults in my life has led me to beating myself up until I'm in tears and a depressive mess over every single tiny little mistake. And I was never demanded perfection by my parents. I can't imagine what that's like for somebody like Julie, who is demanded perfection. Every single mistake she makes eventually replaces that little voice in her head, and it's herself beating herself up. So this love that she finds in Frank, this freedom to not be perfect and to be a debaucherer, I guess is the word I'm going to go with here, is insanely good and represented very well. Moving on to Susie, the bisexual mess, #relatable. Caught between her love for Julie and the physically abusive household she resides in, Susie is a timid and overall unimposing person. She whispers her objections, and when it was her time to choose the Legion's outing, she often went with safer vandalisms and pranks over outright mayhem. Susie feels the same kind of desperation for acceptance and love that Frank does, but while Frank wanted it from literally anyone and found it in the Legion, Susie wants it only from the Legion, from Julie specifically. She wants her friends to love her, and she wants them to see her as one of them. She is petrified that they won't love her anymore, and she will once again be left in an uncaring world who leaves her to the mercy of her abusive father. It is through this desperation we see Susie, a nice and loving person, transform into a cynical, hardened killer. There is an exchange between her and Jeff Johansson in the comics, where he says that, unlike other Legion members, Susie is nice, and he's confused why she stays with them. Susie tells him, quote, "I am not nice because I want to be." She explains that she just wants to let out the rage within her, that she admires Julie because Julie doesn't care, and that silent rage in Susie is what fuels her bond with the Legion. When they prove through a coordinated killing of the store janitor that they are always and forever a team, a family, Susie finally finds that solidarity she so desperately wanted. Joey is the member we know the least about of the four. We don't even have his last name, but what we do know is Joey uses a tough persona to hide his mountain of insecurities. He picks his hair when he's anxious, which is all the time. He loves Susie romantically, but feels inadequate next to Frank and Julie, and therefore does nothing about these feelings for her. He tries to work a normal job for his mother to prove he's good enough for someone. Anyone. Joey loves his mother, and he loves his friends. His tough stoicism is a mask, much like the ones that the Legion wears, a mask to hide his pain and insecurity. The Legion are, without a doubt, one of my favorite killers lore-wise. Each member speaks to me on a relatable, emotional level. I, too, struggle with Frank's need for recognition, Julie's hunger for freedom, Susie's desperation to be loved by the one she loves, and Joey's mask he wears to hide his ever-growing pain. In a twisted, macabre sense, the killing of the janitor is a touching scene, where each member finds within the other three the things that they have always sought. As sick and sadistic and twisted as they are, That love for each other, a familial bond they share, is one to tug at the heartstrings. At the end of the day, the Legion are good villains, sympathetic but sadistic, relatable yet unable to agree with their actions. For lore, I give Behavior a 5 out of 5, a perfectly told story of trauma, journey, and acceptance among those as broken as you. Now give Joey a last name, goddammit! I watched the Legion release trailer roughly 45 times in preparation for this video. I normally don't bring up the advertisement in these videos, but the more I think about it, the more I am absolutely baffled that this was the decision behind advertising this killer. The trailer could have easily had Jeff Johansson exploring the Orman cabin before being ambushed from the shadows by the members of the Legion. For those who don't know, probably because I only mentioned it in passing, the survivor Jeff Johansson, which came out with the Legion, went to school with the members of the Legion and is even responsible for painting their tag on Orman Resort. This Mimicry killer concept shown in the trailer is not even remotely connected to their power, which we will of course cover in the next chapter. However, for now, the power needs to be brought up in brief because I am not sure what it has to do with the backstory. The power of the Legion implies that at some point the Legion went on a murderous rampage, killing potentially dozens of people, chasing them down and stabbing them all to death. But in lore, nothing like that ever happens. It happens one time in a nightmare that some of the members of the Legion have, specifically Frank Morrison, but that's just a nightmare. It has nothing to do with actual reality of their lives. And in fact, there is 4 of them never comes into play in the power. It's honestly all kind of just superficial thematics-wise. The Mori doesn't include all 4 members killing the survivors. The cosmetics are also limited to Frank and Susie in base for some reason. Behavior couldn't be bothered to make all 4 of them base with 4 unique masks and styles. The add-ons are great as they are objects owned by the Legion, and I even love the various mixtapes and how it affects things like chase music and sound design. I like the design of the Legion thematics-wise, but it almost feels like the thematics were mostly made for a different killer. A single killer who went on a murderous rampage with a knife. One that found joy in the kill and not a group of misguided kids who found solidarity. If this killer had different lore, if it was one guy who was responsible for a mass murder with a single knife, I'd loved this thematic design. Knocked completely out of the park, 10 out of 10. Nothing in the thematics is bad because it's poorly crafted or lazy or anything like that. It's bad because it doesn't fit the story we are given. Between this and the weird-ass reveal trailer, I wonder if at some point in development, Behavior had 3 different killer concepts, and somehow we ended up with this weird mismatch of Mimicry killer, high-adrenaline psycho murderer, and a sympathetic group of kids looking for love in a cruel and unforgiving world. Outside of some of the add-ons and a bit of sound design, nothing about the themes really matched the lore we were given. And because of that, I have to give Behavior a 1.5 out of 5 for thematics. Really, really cool thematics, just a really big letdown for how little connection there is between them and the original story. If Tataru does still watch my videos, first off, hey buddy, hope you're well, love and miss you. But second off, he is no doubt at the edge of his seat waiting for me to inevitably mention a change where the power involves all 4 members of the Legion in some way. I am neither going to dissuade nor confirm those fears at this moment, because if there is one thing in this world I love doing in YouTube videos, it's edging the fuck out of my audience. The Legion's power is the Feral Frenzy. Press your active power button to enter the Feral Frenzy for 11 seconds. Upon entering the Feral Frenzy, your base speed goes from 4.6 meters per second to a staggeringly pathetic 5.2 meters per second, and your terror radius is increased by 8 meters from 32 meters to 40. You also replace your basic attack with the Feral Slash and your basic vault with the Feral Vault. The Vault is less complicated, so I'll talk about it first. While in Feral Frenzy, approach a window or a downed pallet and press the interact to vault either one. You vault them at an increased action speed of 0.9 seconds and also pauses the power gauge for the duration of the vault. This essentially means that bar you missing a swing, you can almost always guarantee a hit on a survivor on the other side of a window or pallet. You could also use the pause feature to your advantage to artificially extend your power's duration while waiting to see if any survivors in range mend or enter your terror radius. The way this happens is through the all-important Feral Feral Slash. When hitting a non-deep wounded survivor, the Feral Slash has several effects. If the survivor is the first survivor hit, all survivors in your terror radius will be revealed with Killer Instinct. Barring that, all non-deep wounded survivors being hit will garnish the following effects. Put the survivor into deep wound, increase your base speed by 0.24 meters per second, and also reset the duration of the Feral Frenzy. Your Feral Frenzy will end when hitting a survivor if they are already deep wounded, or if you are landing a 5th consecutive hit, in which case the survivor, regardless of health state, is put into the dying state. So the idea of the power seems simple enough. Find survivors, use power, use Killer Instinct to chase down other survivors, put a clip of you getting 5 hits in a montage to some techno music or whatever. However, there are several issues with this power, and unfortunately for Legion players, these issues make the Legion an insanely bad killer. Bottom 5 in the entire roster, easily. Number 1, the power is countered with relative ease. If the survivors A, stay separated, and B, never heal, then Legion's effectiveness is reduced significantly. 5.2 meters a second is not as fast as you think it is, and 5.44 meters a second isn't that much better, which is what you will be at after your first hit. Many of the maps in this game are simply too big and multi-floored and cause a lot of issues for Legion. A lot of time, your power is better used as an info tool with maybe some additional injuries outside of the first free one you get. Once number 1 has been done, you are just John M1. You can do no— Hashtag Dr. Seuss. I didn't even write that in the script. I just realized that it rhymed. Anyway, you can do nothing to the survivors when they are deep wounded, so you are forced to go into a fatigue if you're in power, give the survivors insane distance on you, and hope you can out-mind game them or win some 50-50s. If the survivors play correctly, then you have practically no power. And this leads to a rather frustrating gameplay loop. While initially the Legion's high-octane, adrenaline-pumping gameplay is fun, running fast and chaining hits, the sound design and general feel of the power is great, once you come across survivors playing in a way you're supposed to play against the Legion, it becomes a frustrating loop of hitting 1, maybe 2 survivors, and then reverting back to John M1. On the survivor side, playing against the Legion is boring. Get hit, mend. Get hit, mend, get hit, mend, over and over and over again until 3 gens pop and the Legion gets so frustrated they finally start committing to chases. It's a gameplay loop that becomes frustrating for both sides and has led to me dropping the character more than once. There is a variety of builds you can use with the Legion. They do have a very unique synergy with pallet busting builds and even some in-game perks, thanks to things like Iridescent Pin, Susie's Mixtape, Best Friends Forever, etc, that allow the Legion to eat through pallets or be really fast in-game, and that is the only fun I ever have playing them. Moving on to perk recommendations, and then we will talk about how to fix these problems. For perks, I highly recommend staying away from any undetectable or oblivious-based perks. Legion thrives off the information gathered from Killer Instinct when playing against good survivors, and you only get that Killer Instinct from survivors in your terror radius, so steer clear of those. I'd also avoid anti-healing builds, as healing is normally not I'd also avoid anti-healing builds, as healing is normally not done against you anyways, so there's no point in running anything to make healing harder when they more than likely won't be healing in the first place. Also, you kind of want them to heal. Legion's entire thing is getting free injuries, so making it harder to heal just forces the survivors to not waste the time that you want them to waste if they were going to try to heal to begin with. You want the survivors to be tempted to heal off of whatever you're doing, because that is going to waste significantly more time. In terms of slowdown, Legion likes to stay in chase as much as possible, so avoid gen kicking perks like Pop, Eruption, Nowhere to Hide, etc. Focus on passive slowdowns like Pain Resonance, Surge, Turn Back the Clock is also great, as you can use it while in power so you can blow a gen while doing a drive-by on your way to a survivor. Personally, I love the Pallet Buster build, but you can also lean into chase perks that allow for easier M1s, and there is also the funny in-game build that I briefly mentioned with BFF add-on, so in-game perks also aren't a bad idea. Oh, and one last thing. Stop using fucking Thanatophobia on Legion. It is not a good fucking perk. It has never been a good fucking perk. It just doesn't do anything for you. It's too easily countered and it fucking becomes useless the moment you get 1 kill. Holy fuck, just do literally anything else. It is useless. It is a useless fucking perk, please. You guys are hurting me. You're hurting me. Why do you hate me? Sorry. So how do we fix all of these issues? Well, to Tat's no doubt relief, I won't be suggesting adding the other members of the Legion into the power. As much as I'd love to rehash my old concept and maybe improve it a bit for the purposes of rage baiting my old friend, I do think I want to be realistic here. So in that regard, I'm opting to send you guys to a different video once you've watched this one all the way through, and that is Tataru himself. Tat is a Legion main who lives and breathes the character to its core. Through much trial and error, Tat has come up with a full Legion rework concept that solves many of the pain points of playing as and against the Legion, and I highly recommend you go to watch it after you're done with this video. With all that being said, I am forced to give behavior another 1.5 for power and gameplay. I know that in this killer's design there is fun, high-octane killer full of adrenaline rush-filled euphoria, but the inherent weakness of the killer forces us to abandon that far too often and ends up feeling like a night of having sex with a numbing agent on, with both parties feeling unsatisfied, unfulfilled, and there's no wet patch to argue over which one has to sleep on it. Aside from being thematic disasters, the Legion's perks, unfortunately, also suffer from not being that good, ranging from mediocre to so niche and situational you will basically only ever use them in 2 instances. Discordance is the strongest of the Legion perks, allowing you to see when 2 survivors get on a generator by proccing a loud noise notification and highlighting the generator in yellow. Now, our Lord and Savior, Otstarva, swears by this perk, but I've only really found use on it on killers who excel at harassing gens like Artis, Freddy, and Knight. But even then, it unfortunately has been completely outclassed by the more recently released Hex Hivemind from Dollar General Vecna. It's a perk that can see some use, but I can't relate to it anywhere above C tier for both being outdated and also only useful on a handful of killers, if that. Iron Maiden is a perk that allows you to search lockers 30% faster. In addition, when a survivor exits a locker, they scream and become exposed for 30 seconds. You will only use this perk in 2 instances. 1, you're a newbie huntress or trickster player, and you use this to reload faster, or 2, you're doing Legion's Adept. Sorry, I didn't put this in the script. There is a 3rd time. You'll use it on Dredge because you think it'll make you exit lockers faster as Dredge. It does not. It does not work on Dredge. Don't try it. Mad Grit is in much of the same boat. Being a perk that activates while carrying a survivor, you have no basic attack cooldown, and when you land a hit, the wiggle timer is paused for 4 seconds. This is used in the Adept and the rather memeish backpack build. Running Mad Grit with perks like Agitation and Iron Grasp that make it extend the time a survivor can be on your shoulder and make you move faster allow for moments where you can chase a survivor around and smack them while carrying another survivor. Not strong in the slightest, but fucking funny. Okay, so, in the past, when it comes to talking about the add-ons for killers, I have had 2 separate formats that I've done. I've had a format where I individually go through each add-on and talk about them and why I think they're in a certain tier, good and bad, all of these other things, and the way that I used to do it required a shitload of editing, and it was very time-consuming and very frustrating, and oftentimes would kill my motivation to do the video properly, and then I just did it where I would just flash the tier list on screen and maybe talk about something notable, and I really didn't like either of those formats because the second one felt too quick and the first one felt like I would often lose my motivation to make the video. So instead, I thought that I would take a series that I do from time to time on this channel, which is where I explain and rank all add-ons, and I would just put that series in these analysis videos moving forward. So that doesn't mean these kind of things won't get their own video, but you know, maybe sometimes I'll double dip. I don't know. Anyway, this is the Legion tier list add-on. You're going to notice the colors are different. The yellow add-ons are now green in modern DBD, and the green add-ons are now blue in modern DBD. This is just the images from an old tier list. I couldn't find an updated one for the current year, and to be honest with you, I don't quite frankly give a shit to do so because the add-ons haven't changed themselves. The rarities haven't changed since this tier list was made, so I think we're fine. And just to explain how I set up my tier list, S is basically perfect, amazing, you should run it as often as you can. A is close to perfect, B is pretty good, C is mid, D is one step away from being useless, and F is practically useless. Don't use this add-on, fuck this add-on, it's not good whatsoever. First up is Friendship Bracelet. Friendship Bracelet extends the lunge duration of the Feral Slash by 0.3 seconds. This is basically just an overall increase to your attack range. It gives you a lot of last second jumps in attacking, which can lead to more Feral Frenzy hits and more consistent Feral Frenzy downs. I really like it. I think it's pretty good. I think that a couple of Legion mains would put this closer to the A tier. I don't think it's quite that high, but I think that if you're looking for solid brown add-ons to run, you can't go wrong with the Friendship Bracelet. Next up is Mischief List. This extends the duration of Feral Frenzy by 1 second, so it goes from 1 second to 12 seconds. This is... I just can't see the use in this that much. Like, yeah, it means that if you are consistently hitting survivors, then the add-on effectively extends your Feral Frenzy duration by an additional 4 seconds, which I can see that is being really good, but I don't think that additional second is going to necessarily lead to you more consistently getting your Feral Frenzy hits. You know what? I'll put it in C. I think mid is probably a good place for it. It's not offensively bad or one step away from being useless, but I don't think I could quite call it good. Next up is the Scratched Ruler. Reduces the recovery time of Feral Frenzy by 5 seconds. This means that you get your Feral Frenzy back 5 seconds sooner. So normally it's 15 seconds. This brings it back in line to 10 seconds. This is just extremely good. I mean, just being able to get your Feral Frenzy back way more often is just really, really good. Probably one of the best brown add-ons in the game, for sure. Next up is Smiley Face Pin. Survivors suffer from blindness for 60 seconds after mending themselves. This is not really that great, but I don't think it's one step away from being useless. Blindness is not the best status effect in the world to give survivors, but 60 seconds of them not being able to see their teammates, not being able to use windows of opportunity, not being able to find hexes, not being able to use deja vu, not being able to do a lot of those things that require aura reading. Just honestly, I think you'll find that this is in use more often than it isn't, and so I can't really put it in the D tier, but I also don't think that blindness is that great of a status effect that we would want to put it in the B tier. Next up is the D-Face Smiling Pin. Survivors suffer from Mangled status effect for 60 seconds after mending themselves. I am just going to go ahead and throw this into the D tier. As I said in the perk recommendation section back in the Power and Gameplay, you do not want to run anti-heal on Legion. You want to encourage the survivors to heal, because the more time they waste healing, the more time they're not doing gens. So if they see something like, for example, Mangled, they're not going to want to heal as often, and that 60 seconds, it may be like, oh, they don't want to heal for the 60 seconds, but at the end of the day, you know, Vigil is a thing that is in effect, but also you may find them in that 60 seconds. So the time that they could have spent wasting healing, they didn't, and then you come by and they're still injured, and so you're just John M1. So really, I don't like anti-heal on Legion. I've never found it to be very good. I've found it to be counterintuitive. So yeah, I would say D-Face Smiley Pin is definitely in the D tier. Next up is the Etched Ruler. Survivors hit with a Feral Slash suffer from Oblivious for 60 seconds. Don't use this. Don't use this add-on. The thing is that a lot of people might think to themselves, oh, you know, Oblivious, you can come back, you can sneak in on them, but the thing about this, you know, we'll put it in the D tier. We'll put it one step away from useless. The reason that I don't like this is because of, again, I was talking about this in the perk section. Whenever you are using Legion, you want survivors to be in your terror radius. Oblivious takes them out of your terror radius, and so it can cause a lot of problems down the road, especially 60 seconds is a very long time. So you can use this to do kind of a jump scare Legion, like you come over, you hit them, you run away, they mend, and then they don't know that you're coming back toward them. That seems like a really good idea, but more often than not, if you're trying to play the Legion properly, what you'll usually run into is you'll hit them, they'll mend, they'll be oblivious, but then you're still in your Feral Frenzy chasing after another survivor, but now you can't find the survivor who's already mended, and you want to be able to find them because that gives you another feral slash, which can lead to a 5th man down, but now you can't because they're not in your terror radius. Next up is Julie's Mixtape. It instantly recharges the Feral Frenzy after being stunned by any means. So anytime you are flashlight blinded for a save, DS, head-on from lockers, and most importantly, a pallet being dropped on your head, you immediately recover your Feral Slash. I think that Julie's Mixtape is incredibly good. At least in the A tier. It is one of the biggest things that goes with my pallet shredder build that I really love to run, but unironically, the pallet shredder build is a very good build on Legion. It's not just a meme build, it's not just a fun build, it is an actual legitimately good build that you get use out of, and so this add-on works very well and is one of the cores of that build, so it's very important that you do that. And next up is a Mural Sketch. Increases the stackable movement speed boost gained from Feral Frenzy by 0.8 meters a second to 0.32 meters a second, up to a maximum of 1.28 meters a second. So it basically just makes you run faster. Is going to give you more consistent Feral Frenzy hits, which actually makes your power, fucking function like it should. So I can't be mad at that. I think that is pretty good. Not the best thing in the entire world, but I do think that we can call it good at least. Never Sleep Pill extends the duration of Feral Frenzy by 10 seconds, so it goes from a 11 second power to a 21 second power, but then your starting movement speed is base 4.6, and then you get some blood points. Never Sleep Pills suck. There's just no doubt. There's just no getting around it. You are sacrificing so much by not having that speed. That speed is imperative. It is imperative to getting your Feral Frenzy hits. It doesn't matter if you have extended duration of 21 seconds if you can't get the hits to begin with, right? I was trying to think of a good analogy to make this funny, but I just honestly couldn't think of one. Basically, the basis of this is that extending the duration of a shitty power doesn't all of a sudden make that power good. Right? Just because you extend the duration of your shitty power, it doesn't mean the shitty power is less shitty. Because Feral Frenzy's problem isn't necessarily its duration, it's the speed. And if 5.2 meters a second is too goddamn slow, 4.6 is definitely too goddamn slow. Next up is Joey's Mixtape. Survivors become hemorrhaged until fully healed after they mend themselves. This is another example of a add-on that is just completely based in anti-heal, and I still don't think anti-heal is very good, but hemorrhage is at least better than mangled, and it doesn't last as long, so maybe you could throw it in there, but anti-heal just doesn't work that well on Legion. Stolen Sketchbook. It causes survivors hit with chained feral slashes to drop any stolen item. This is not a good add-on, or carried item. Stolen item? What the hell am I talking about? Carried item. This is not a good add-on at all, but it is rather funny. So if you ever want to see survivors get really confused, run the Stolen Sketchbook. Stylish sunglasses. The auras of survivors mending themselves within 24 meters are revealed to you. Fun fact, one of my very, 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 very first Legion videos I ever made was using these stylish sunglasses. 6th ever DBD video, and it was called Legion's Best Add-on Combo. It got 169 views, and it was me showcasing this add-on combined with Filthy Blade, which we'll get to in a little bit. The reason I think stylish glasses are pretty good is not just nostalgia, but also the fact that just the more information you have to work with, the better. So if you see a survivor run off and they're mending somewhere, you can sometimes cancel your power and just go straight for them. This is definitely not as good. I think I'll put it mid. We'll put it in mid. This is definitely not as good as it used to be because mending timers have reduced significantly. They nerfed deep wounds quite a bit ago. I think in the Kaneki release, when the ghoul released, I believe, they basically decreased the amount of time it takes to mend. And ever since then, this has not been as good of an add-on, but I still think it has its merits. I think I'll put it in like in between Mischief List and Smiley Pin. I think that'll be a good place for it. Next up is Susie's Mixtape. Increases the detection radius of the Killer Instinct by 20 meters. I firmly believe that Susie's Mixtape is actually detrimental to you as a Legion player. The speed is something that I keep bringing up, I keep mentioning, and this is one of the reasons why the speed is so bad. If you can see them from 20 meters away, 20 further meters away, so 60 meters total, you know, barring additional terror radius increasing perks like distortion or not distortion, distressing. Barring perks like distressing, 60 meters, it seems like a good idea. You can see them from further, but unfortunately it often encourages you to chase killer instincts that you would never be able to catch. If you think that you can use this add-on purely for the information it gives, great. I think in the hands of an experienced Legion, maybe this could work, kind of, sort of, but I think at the end of the day, it's more detrimental than anything, and I just wouldn't run it. Finally, in the green category, or what is now the blue category in modern day Dead by Daylight, the Legion pin, survivors are broken for 60 seconds after they mend themselves. Again, you don't really want to run that much anti-heal, but I will put it at the top of D because in some instances, breaking the survivors for 60 seconds is good, but realistically, I just don't think it's good enough to matter. Moving on to our purples, which thankfully have not been shifted too much. First off, we have Best Friends Forever. Hitting a survivor with a chained feral slash will grant you increasing from each one 2 tokens for the first chained, 3 for the second chained, 4 for the fourth chained, and 5 for the 5th chain. I messed that up somehow, but basically the first feral slash you do doesn't grant any tokens, and then you get 2, 3, 4, and 5 for each consecutive hits. When the exit gates become powered, if BFF has acquired 15 tokens, you gain 6% haste outside of Feral Frenzy. This is the perk I was talking about when I said that Legion has a pretty good in-game build potential. That 6% haste matters. It matters a lot, and if you set up a proper mid-game with an in-game build, so if you're running, you know, No Way Out, No Ed, I've really become a fan of, what is that Kaneki perk? No one, oh, Jesus. None are free. The none are free perk from Kaneki, which allows you to block all the upright pallets and windows. So if you got yourself a good in-game build, and then you perform strongly in the mid-game to activate the in-game build, BFFs becomes extremely powerful. And I think that a lot of people greatly underrate this add-on's potential, just because of the fact that they don't see how good it is outside of an in-game build, which it's meant to be used with an in-game build. Like, the way I judge add-ons is what perks are they meant to be used with? What kind of builds are they meant to be used with? And how good are they to your base kit? That's the way I kind of judge perks, or add-ons, so that's what that is. Filthy Blade increases the mending time of survivors by 4 seconds. This used to be a pretty good add-on. I would have put it in the A tier pre the mending changes, but now it just kind of returns mending to where it used to be. So honestly, we'll probably put it in mid, right above. I'd probably put it at the top of mid. I think that it just doesn't do what it used to, and it's kind of annoying, but I mean, what are you gonna do, I guess? Frank's Mixtape pauses the power gauge depletion while performing the break or damage action, and then you kick generators at 20% faster, and you kick breakable walls 30% faster. So I think, unironically, this is extremely strong. You can pair this with gen kicking perks. You can pair this with pallet shredding if you wanted to do something like that, although We'll talk about the best palette shredding add-on in a second. Generally speaking, pausing your timer while being able to get through resources or cause damage to gens and slowdowns is very, very strong, very effective, and because of the increased speed, you can get back into the chase faster. So I think it's a really good idea. I know that, or I believe that Tataru thinks that this should be base kit in some form or fashion, and I agree. It's just a good effect that Legion kind of needs. Finally, in the purple add-on area, we have Stab Wound Study. The auras of survivors are revealed to you for 4 seconds after they mend themselves. This is really good for info. I'm going to put it at the top of B tier. I think it is extremely great. When they finish mending, you see their auras, so it allows you to continue to keep a good eye on them. And if they are still in your terror radius in the Feral Frenzy, it could allow you to track them through walls, cut them off, stuff like that. I just think it's an all-around good, solid add-on. Fuming Mixtape is the next one on the list. During the Feral Frenzy, the intensity of generators' auras are revealed to you, causes all partially repaired generators to start regressing if there is no survivor on it. So basically, during your Feral Frenzy, you get ruined. You get ruined as your ability, and I think that's really good. Like maybe I'm like wrong or not as well versed in this as I think, but I think this is such a strong add-on. I think it's legitimately one of the strongest add-ons in the game. Just having Ruin while you're in Frenzy is great. And the thing about Frenzy is that if survivors are in your terror radius, they are more likely to let go of generators to start pre-running you, because pre-running Legion is one of the ways to counter him. And so forcing survivors off of generators when you're in Feral Frenzy and also regressing them in that time is really good. Now, yes, it's only 11 seconds. Maybe that's why it's probably not as good, because it's only for 11 seconds unless you actually get a hit. So you could probably do this. Maybe we'll put it as good. I think the 11-second timer is the problem, because it regresses at 100%, which is not as good as you think it is, because when a generator is regressing at 100%, for every 1 second the generator regresses, the survivors can repair that progress in 0.4 seconds, or 25% of the time. So, okay, so the math is really weird. Basically, for every 1 second the survivors repair a generator, it takes you 4 seconds to regress it at 100%. The generators regress 4 times slower than they are repaired. So you would only so in 11 seconds you would only save 3.75 seconds off of a gen. Yeah, I think we'll put that at the bottom of B tier. Finally, Iridescent Button, the #1 in palette shredding builds, and I think especially in the current day of Dead by Daylight, where the palettes are all over the place, it's just really hard to beat this add-on. Just being able to break pallets consistently, you combine that with Susie's Mixtape, so if they stun you, you're constantly getting your power back to break the pallets. Then you combine it with Spirit Fury and Enduring, maybe even Hubris if you're feeling cheeky, and then you're just constantly knocking survivors to the ground. It is part of what I believe to be Legion's best build, so yeah, that's where Iridescent Button goes. For perk and add-on design, I will give Behavior a 2.1 out of 5. There is some decent creativity on display here, and I do think that the add-ons lend themselves to unique build diversity, but unfortunately the perks are far too situational and the add-ons do lack in power somewhat. The final score for the Legion is a 2.525 out of 5, What started off as a strongly designed killer in the lore department quickly fell apart into an unthematic, problematic, weak mess of a killer that is in serious need of an overhaul. There is so much pizzazz missing from a killer that arguably should have some of the most pizzazz in the game. I really hope Behavior considers the Legion community's feedback and brings the Legion up to a viable spot with a guaranteed rework and rehashing of thematic design, animations, and things like that. I'd also like to see some reworks to their Mori and possibly even their perks, given more emphasis on the, four-man aspect of the character. There's just so much wasted potential from the lore, and on top of that, the power is weak and inconsistent, so what we lost in thematics, we didn't even gain in functionality. Overall, if you enjoy the Legion, I'm glad and happy for you. The fact that you can find joy in such a dogshit weak killer is pretty impressive to me, but for me personally, I just don't like the Legion that much outside of their lore, and that's really all I have to say. But thank you guys for watching, I really appreciate it. Of course, let me know what you think in the comments section down below. And as always, a great big special thank you to my channel members listed on screen now. If you want to find out how to become a channel member today, get awesome perks like seeing videos early, merch discount codes, and more, then please click that join button down below. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one.